I don't think they can.
Each person drove like a half a car, because there's 300 cars in the parking lot, 12 people.
Hey, I guess we're I'm not really gonna, I mean, there's nothing to really start from our standpoint. We don't really have a quorum, so to speak. We have, obviously, the 3 board members here. We don't have 5. Mr. Keithley had said yesterday to me that he indicated that he was not going to be here. So, we're not really, we don't really have anything on an agenda for a meeting, per se, for us to make decisions and so forth. So I guess we'll dive right into the public forum. If anybody has any questions, comments that they would like to bring forward, we will do our best to try to answer and or accommodate those. Mr. Court.
I do. I wanted to address you. I got to see the video of the award you got, and I want to thank you for your service.
Well, you're welcome.
Anybody else in here who's been in the military, thank you. The other thing is, there is it's legal and a fiduciary responsibility of every board member to uphold the rules of the community and to make sure everything is above board. So far, to my knowledge, Mike, you've been the only one doing that. I know you've had to put on a thick skin to do it because you're out there by yourself. What I would say to you, don't give up and don't give in. Stick with it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyway.
I have a question. I have a question about the original number of lots that were available out here, and have they been cut up over the years to increase that, the developer 75% number?
The original, I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I'm just gonna kind of go on some knowledge things that I have. I know there was a little over 5,000 lots originally. 5,000 some odd, I forget. There was a time when the developers, the 75% in the bylaws for the developer being, that was presumed to be met by the board at some time in the 90s. At that time, the prior to them filing anything legally or any so forth, there was the president at the time, I guess, got a little overzealous, went to the developer and said, "We got you. You're going to have to get off of our bylaws." And out of, not out of our community, but stop the decision-making process as far as we're concerned. At that point in time, prior to their filing, the developer at the time went and circumvented the system and divided up another set of lots, of membership, what's called membership lots. They're roughly 12-foot by 20-foot sections of property. So in the 90s that happened. At the time, my understanding, I don't know all the legalities of everything, but my understanding is that at some point in that time, the board decided not to pursue that any longer, and they allowed it to continue. There has been another division of lots here since the beginning of the year by the developer again.
Since the beginning of this year.
Beginning of this year, in January.
1,200 of them. So this is just a game that they're going to continue to do until you're into 1 foot by 1 foot square lots. I mean,
building lot?
Many.
There was originally, a section of property or a section, that was, it was an A, 5A, and plat. You know, we got lot block and plat, right? So the plat 5A. And that original lot, if you hear a lot of, throughout the years, I've heard it a lot of times, that people get to pay to fish here, right? They just get to pay to fish. And it's like, no, that's ridiculous. Oh, wait a minute. There are membership lots. They're 12 by 20 piece of lot. They pay the same assessment as unimproved lot. So you could have a building size lot. That person that has that membership lot pays the same amount of money, right, in dues and assessments.
I thought this was a homeowners association.
That was in the original design of that. I didn't, you know, prior to this being set up,
1974, that was.
yeah, that way. And then, and that continued, like I said, in the 90s when it was challenged that the developer needs to be, you know, away from the association bylaws. That challenge went, and the developer went and the board, like I said, the board at that time chose not to pursue that legally. And so this is something that this community has continually tried to push for, and this is prior, this is, you know, things I think probably even prior to that, the community tried to push for the developer to be off of the bylaws and to stop having the veto power in a sense.
Yeah.
So,
It's a big old boys club.
this is, I'm very cautious about speaking a lot of things because there's a lot of this that's involved in this lawsuit. And I'm trying not to speak of anything really related too much to the lawsuit that's going on now or the legal matters, just in trying not to.
Well, what's the definition of a home in here versus a trailer? I know the trailer's out front. They come in on wheels, it's a trailer, so. Isn't there a requirement for pitch of a roof and
Yes.
square foot and all that, and
Yes.
those don't meet that?
Currently in their situation as they set, they don't, you know, they certainly don't meet that now. If they, Mr. Hector did get some information here this afternoon from Terre du Lac Homes LLC and kind of show some pictures of what presumably these homes are going to look like when they're done and so forth. So anybody's welcome to certainly come up and take a look at those.
Don't take them, I only have a few, but if you're welcome to look at them. I stopped by because everyone had questions and no one's been asking that I know of. So I stopped by and said, hey, what's going on? So, yes ma'am?
Aren't there already some of those homes in here?
Yes, absolutely.
Probably some of the people in this room have probably lived in them.
They might, and I have no idea what type of home you have, but I just stopped by and I said, hey, what's the deal? Can you tell me some stuff? So they gave me a few brochures of some of their plans they have. This blue brochure is supposedly the house that's at the entrance now when it's completed and finished. You can see that. They talked about a Deer Valley Ranch retirement system. They gave me a brochure on that, somewhere near the Valley course. And in my other time, I'm not doing anything for Terre du Lac. I got some other stuff, so.
Can I get one?
Absolutely. But if you mind giving it back so everyone has a chance to see it, you can look at it.
Mrs. Drockelman, you had a question or
Mike,
comment?
you and Herman have a lawsuit going, right? And
Yes.
How did you put all of Terre du Lac in your lawsuit? You didn't ask me. How can you include all of us without our permission in a lawsuit? Does that mean we have to pay your legal fees?
Currently, we started off with the lawsuit basically, or the suit started off with a removal of 2 board members based on their fiduciary responsibilities being relinquished, not doing their job. I had, as was pointed out earlier, we as a board have a legal right, have a legal responsibility to uphold the bylaws and so forth, and essentially call out problems when we see them happening.
And wasn't it true that you admitted that you lied in the affidavit?
No, that's not
Two
true.
points.
No, that's not true. Look, I'm not gonna argue the legal case here in tonight's matter. It is an ongoing legal case, and the court system will make.
How did we get included?
The court system will make a decision on this, as it comes up, presumably on the 26th. The association got included in this, as well as Terre du Lac Incorporated got included in this, based on the intertwining of each other in this whole case of everything being, what it is.
But we're not intertwined with you and Herman.
Yes, ma'am, you are. By the virtue of me being on the board, I had a legal responsibility to basically do what I did under the law. Yes, ma'am.
Why were you the only one?
I can't answer that.
1 out of 7.
One out of, we did not have 7 at that point. There were 2 members of the board that had resigned. So we were actually down to a 5-member board.
Mike, is it true that you only have to buy 2 permits a year?
I, as me?
You, Terre du Lac Utility.
Oh, well, if I'm going to talk about Terre du Lac utility business, I have long said I do not sit on this board to discuss Terre du Lac utility business. If you want to discuss Terre du Lac utility business, I'm welcome. You can come to my office. You can call me. My cards are everywhere. You can pick them up. Or I will talk to you after the meetings. But these meetings here are for the Terre du Lac Association as a whole, and this is why I sat up here. This is why I was elected up here, not for Terre du Lac Utilities.
I have another question. I've noticed that there's been some hydrants that have been worked on lately, and I applaud you for that. Is there any plans to fix any more hydrants?
Well, one of those hydrants was damaged by the Terre du Lac Association from a mower.
One? One?
Well, there's multiples that have been damaged, but
Right.
one that we've been working on most recent, yes, was.
Yeah, well, Cody did tell me that it was hit by a lawnmower, and I don't understand that. But there is a lot more hydrants that need attention. Is there any plans to do so?
Sir, again, those are Terre du Lac utility assets. That's a Terre du Lac Utilities piece of information. If you'd like that information, we can discuss it after.
Very good.
I'm sure they'll be taken into consideration on October 15th. I'm sure it'll be brought up in the hearing, in the trial, your trial.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I'd just like to mention when Adam was saying that as far as people wanting, did you say people wanting answers to questions and no one had been asking questions? Is that what, did Ms. Swan say that, or? Because I was on my way to my storage unit and she was standing. I asked her workers at that time to ask, or to tell her I'd like to ask her a question. She graciously, she was in her Hummer, she came around and rolled her window down, and I looked at her and I said, may I ask you a question regarding your permit? I did not even get to ask the question when, you know, we're taught as people, young people coming up, that if you're asked a question, don't ever answer it with a question. Well, and I know Ms. Kwan isn't here. I'm not meaning to, where is she? I don't know. I don't care. But anyway, she said, and what business is it of yours? And I said, I'm a resident. It is my business. What business is it of yours? And she said it 3 times, each time raising her voice to me. And I stood there right in the driveway going into the storage unit. All I wanted to know, because as we've already brought up the topic of the mobile homes, I don't think that there's many people here that are as concerned about the mobile homes themselves as we are about how and why now did they come in. And that question too, we have a developer who has this right, that right, and so many other rights that we, the residents of Terre du Lac, don't know about, but we should know about. So somehow or another, okay, she's a Kwan, that property belongs to the Kwan Trust, she buys it, or however, but it is registered in the name of Terre du Lac Homes now. does that mean now that the Quan Trust still has, because Mr. Combs of TLC Inc. owes the Quan family money yet? That they have a controlling interest and they're going to be given the same rights as him? Getting back to my question, I indeed asked the question of this individual who either owns 100% or owns 50% of this business. And she did not afford me any kind of response. Now, like I said, I'm not gonna come right out and say here that I'm against these homeowners by any means, but I am against, what's so funny? What's so funny? Because I'm going on and on?
Yeah, I just said we might need to get a timer. No, that's all I said.
Well, you know, that's
You got valid points, so why are we here?
disrespectful. And see, then this is what divides us. This is what divides us.
Ma'am.
I've made umpteen points here, and if you don't see it, then you're pretty darn gullible. And I'm being to the point, I'm saying that to you, not to the board member. So if anything is said, I would never suggest to anybody to buy one of these homes from that particular agency.
Well, and truthfully, when.
But I wanna know, where is the permit? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I was gonna actually, when you said that, was, those are great questions, first of all.
Even though I took up your time.
No, come on now. That's why I'm here.
Oh, okay.
So,
Now,
No, I mean, one thing
you
I
can
wanna
give it
say.
to me. Just
Well,
say 5 minutes.
Okay, so one thing I do wanna say, and I applaud Mike too, for all the things he's done. And I can tell you this, if people would ask our opinion on things, you might understand our side a little bit. I've had one person out of this group that I see here come and actually talk to me. One.
Was that me?
No.
Because I tried to,
When?
after a meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Catch me tonight.
okay.
But I've had one person, actually two, I apologize, there's two people in here. I'm not against Mike Tilley. And every time I put anything out there, you have to understand, Mike feels what he did is right, and I'm okay with Mike feeling that. And a lot of things Mike's doing, I agree with Mike. I just might not like how Mike done it. Okay? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm okay with it. Yes, sir.
I got a question, I'm new kind of all this stuff. Going back to kind of what she said about the rights and that the developer has in Terre du Lac, is there any location, whether it be a website or available at the front office, that lists all the rights that the developer has over Terre du Lac? And is it in the bylaws that those rights are transferable on the purchase? Do we know that already?
There's not, I don't think there's a particular list you're going to find that has the developer's rights per se.
And how do we know what rights they do have?
The bylaws do state that the developer has, it lists some rights that they have in the bylaws. And that's kind of the 75% we're talking about. The bylaws state that after 75% of the properties, the original properties in Terre du Lac are sold or deeded to someone, then they are, the developer goes away after 75% is sold. Goes away meaning that they go off of our bylaws. Right now, in the current situation, until that is now going to be proven in the court of law, or presumably proven, is that 75% clause has been met.
Do we know what we think, what do you think is the board is that percentage?
Closer to 82, 83, something like that percent.
So the members of the board currently feel that that has been met?
I don't speak for them. My name is on this personally. And again, I had that, one, I had the right under legally having that right, and two, I have that.
I understand what right you do.
But that is what I believe, yes.
Can I ask one other question? In terms of the bylaws, are there copies of the bylaws that can be obtained by a resident?
Yes, it is on their website.
The complete list of bylaws?
Correct.
Thank you.
And there was a page missing. I don't know if we had that put back on. We think that was fixed. And or if you stop in the association office, they will provide you with a copy, a hard copy if you'd like that.
It's available on that line. And
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, sir.
Guys, could you educate us on what the requirements are for development and improvement of a commercial lot? Does it require asphalt or concrete, or requirements for a driveway, certain setbacks from the main road that would have to be of non-pervious surface such as asphalt or concrete?
Our current rules and regulations, I'm gonna kind of wrap a lot into this, is the current rules and regulations. We do have rules and regulations that relate to modular homes. Because as we know, there's modular homes out here. Our rules and regulations state that those modular homes have to meet certain criteria.
I don't think
Then-
we should, the commercial
then-
locations.
Our rules and regulations permitting processes all also state that any new construction, like a driveway per se, has to meet the same surface that it is. So you can't put a gravel up against and we requested that of the storage units, and they applied, right? They now have an apron in to a certain level, and there are some things that I believe we need to look into. And with this new home, I'll say, whatever they want to call it, office or
Whatever it is.
display home up there, I believe there's some things that if they're not met, then we're gonna have, the board's gonna have to do something about it. Criteria, there's certain criteria that need to be met. As far as setbacks and things, commercial and unplatted land is kind of is a really kind of a Wild West thing out here. We don't really have rules and regulations so much related to commercial properties.
Can I ask a question to that?
Yeah.
And I know I keep going back to the developer. Any rules or regulation that is made by this board or changed by this board, does it have to be approved by the developer to be put in place?
Not rules and regulations. Changes to the bylaws, yes, but not rules and regulations.
So can this board, once it's fully established again, make rules and regulations that will have an impact on whether those type housings, whether this community wants those or not, that's a community decision, I think. But can this board make those decisions without influence from any developer,
I'm hoping that process takes place, yes, personally, as one board member. Yes, ma'am.
I was curious, the modular home, the rules and regulations as to modular homes seems to apply to residential property, and this would be a modular home on commercial property, so would the same rules and regulations apply to that? And also, what happens to the home once it's established there? Can they, if they don't sell it, I mean, there it is. Can they then sell it for somebody to live in and it's be in a commercial one?
Well, that's, again, I believe that's some of the questions that the board needs answered. I mean, we've got some information flow started. Apparently, from what Mr. Hector said, all we have to do is ask the questions and we'll get the answers.
I didn't go that far. But
I
I stopped by and he gave me this, and they're having an open house on the 2nd. And it's on this flyer here, so if you want to check it out, take a picture of it, or go by and get one.
Did that company get proper permitting to set up site there?
We have no permit on the books right now for that current thing.
And what is the ramifications that this board has on whether it's them or anyone who does something unpermitted?
Well, that's some of the, again, I think rolls into some of those questions that we need answered from the board. Whose property is it? Is it in fact under Combs' name or
That's the same question
developer?
she was asking.
What
Right.
board?
I know you probably believe, but we are.
Excuse me?
What board? When you said you need questions answered, you're talking about from the Quanah State?
Correct. It was my understanding that piece of property, Quan Estate or Quan, whatever, trust, has kept all of the, my understanding, kept all of the undeveloped land and unplatted land. So that being commercial land is known as unplatted. So that would be left in the Quan Trust. If you look online, you can look under the assessor site, it shows Quan Trust. Quan Trust is not exempt from permitting processes. I believe we need to go to our permit person and start asking questions of why this hasn't been brought before, or if he had any discussions and so forth. So it's
If I'm just a regular person out here and I do something
right.
that's not, that I do unpermitted, what is your recourse against me?
Well, initially we would ask for a stop work.
Has this board done that?
No.
Okay, what else did you do to me?
We would then potentially, if you kept building, I mean, it could escalate on. We would keep your deposit. We would off the permit. If we made you get a permit, if you did not get a permit, you refused to get a permit, I presume that we have the rights to take legal action. You've been waiting a while.
A question in regard to the 75%. I heard what you said about it was challenged at one time and then there was some dividing. Originally, I'm just using what I call common sense. When you say that when Terre du Lac was first developed, you had so many lots or something, was that a statement?
Yes, 5,000 some odd
Yeah.
lots.
And then when that came up to where that 35%, that should have been it. Can anybody offer me a logical explanation why anyone would go and subdivide lots beyond that amount in order to extend that
Control.
control? It does not seem logical to me. And anyway, there was an original agreement, and that agreement stands as it originally is, as far as I would be concerned, unless there was something I'm not a lawyer.
And that's,
Could be a lot, I do not know.
we've said it a lot lately.
But, with that said, to me, I think it was a wrong move back then. I'm just expressing an opinion, you know, what they say about opinions. It shouldn't have been allowed to go on that point then, and just because it was done once, two wrongs don't make a right.
Correct.
Okay. The other thing I got to say is how, to me, this whole thing got started. Got started right after the elections, when things happened behind closed doors, and it seemed like nobody knew anything about it, but actually happened. And I've been giving this a lot of personal thought, and I sort of came up with an acronym in relation to this, and which I think would help the whole community if we followed this. Again, it's a personal opinion, but I call it THT. I call it truth, honesty, and transparency. This behind closed doors jazz, I don't care if you're board members or not. Personally, I think when you have a meeting, anybody wants to take the time out to come in and want you guys to have a meeting, or to be allowed to. That's just my personal opinion. You guys may not agree with that. I know we like to talk about stuff. It's okay. We're all human beings. But we gotta keep it open, and we gotta let everybody know as many details as they're willing to take interest in.
That's probably why three of us are here tonight.
Huh?
That's why three of us are here tonight.
I appreciate that, and I applaud all three of you. And I might take note. I noticed who is not here. And therein lies part of the problem. And if we keep on that road, that's going to continue to be a problem. But I think if we all demand truth, honesty, and transparency from ourselves and the board members, that we'll be doing a great service. And Terre du Lac will get back to normal in a very short period. Because we have wonderful people out here. I've been out here over 23 years.
Well said.
Anyone else?
Oh,
I have a question.
she's been waiting a little while, sorry.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, you.
Okay.
Yeah.
My question is, it involves the developers now, because we once had one developer, now we have two. And from anything that I have heard, there seems to be some haziness about stuff, and it seems like the Swan Estate or Trust is part of it, and as far as I know, that there's never been any clarity about who is doing what, and because it does affect our community, I mean, Mr. Combs is making decisions, of the, right to veto, but do we really know that he does have that right? Just because Mr. Kwan anointed him whatever, I don't know. But we don't know anything about it. From my understanding, we've never seen any paperwork that says this is what's going on. How does that affect us as a community? I mean, as far as with the board, I mean.
I think it affects us greatly as a board and as a community. I think it's important that, that, you know, that the developer be open with things that are happening in our community and with everyone. I mean, it could, you know, affect a bunch of things, right? So, I mean, I don't know, it's a tough question because.
I mean, you have a right to know what my property, how much property I own out here.
Right.
Right, I mean, that's like every other person here, they have to declare that if they own that property.
Right.
But we don't really know, what does Mr. Combs own, what does the Kwan, Trust own?
Right.
And the impact there is Ms. Kwan is involved in stuff, and then you have Mr. Combs involved in stuff. It's almost like we're being double teamed by, I just, the whole thing leaves me a little confused. And plus the fact, years ago when I was on the board, I looked up what a developer was, and the developer, according to Wikipedia, is someone who comes in and spends 5 to 10 years putting in roads, putting in sewer lines, putting in water, which they did, electrical and all that stuff. And after 5 to 10 years, it's either a go or it isn't, and you go and you do something else. And we had a developer for 50 years, almost 5 times longer than the average, and I'm trying to figure out why. What, I mean, most developers are on the way and gone, and this guy's saying,
I mean, your question, Helen, it becomes a very teetering. You know, you've been on the board, and you know that we have asked for that production of paperwork to show who owns what, and you know we've been told no. So beyond, at that point, beyond legal action, and we all know legal action becomes expensive, and you know that's always a balance that the board has to take with the community's money, is whether we're going to take on a legal battle, and is it worth it? Sometimes it may be, sometimes it may not be. You know, and I think out of the end of all this, that we're going to come with our legal battles, we may have some of our questions answered.
okay.
Yes,
16 days, right?
Right now, who is granting building permits? Right at this moment, if I want to put up a building.
if you go, well, the process would be you go to the association office, you grab the form, fill out the proper form, provide the proper information that needs to be provided, pay the fees. Cody then takes it and processes it. Cody Gillette, our public works.
So Cody makes the decision?
Well, Cody makes a decision on and puts it all together, compares it to our rules and regulations, says what, if there's a variance needed, he makes sure the board understands that, then the board signs off on those permits. So it's a process that comes through the board.
So, and
for the
how many
final.
board members do you have to have sign it?
Well, currently we have to have 3 sign it.
Yeah. One, I want to say thanks, Mike, for sticking up for Terre du Lac. Secondly, what type of toll is modular or mobile homes gonna take on our property values, road conditions, because they're gonna be towing them all through Terre du Lac? As they sit right now, is it going to be built on that property? And that addresses back to the residential or commercial property, which one is it? And another thing, if it's not being built, if it's not being put on the ground, it's still sitting on a trailer, so therefore it's an oversized load on the side of our road.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, but I guess, I want to know, is my property value going to go down because of this? Or my my road condition can't go down because of this.
Well, I know when I had some work done, it was my responsibility. If I tore up the road, I had to repair it. Out in front of my house, I was told that by Cody, so I would hope that if I had to repair the road in front of my house, we would work with the contractor, that whoever's hauling this through the community would have to fix that road.
And Dan, I totally agree with you, anyone that tears up the road should fix it.
Well, one thing.
How old is that?
Do you know where Andy Hoffman is? He has an absolutely beautiful home, and I was over there the other day. The house across the road from Andy Hoffman, he said, was a manufactured home. It's a huge house, it's brick, it's absolutely beautiful, and he said that was a manufactured house.
I'm not,
Probably modular.
Yeah.
Not yet, okay.
I'm not debating the look of a modular home. I don't care, it doesn't hurt my feelings if you put a modular home on your property. It is what it is. Unless it affects me personally as the value of my home, it affects the roads that we've been paying so much to rebuild around this area, then that starts affecting me. That's what I want.
This isn't a new thing, though. You're acting like we voted this in.
No,
It's
I'm
not,
not.
it's definitely not a new thing. It's been here since, how long's my village's been allowed?
No.
In the beginning, I suppose.
Yeah, and I'm not arguing putting modulars in. That's, like I said, that's not what I'm getting at, unless it affects me personally.
Yeah, if your roads get torn
The
up.
money that I put into Terre du Lac, other roads, and my street, St. Michael, is used a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And, it just got repaved. I don't wanna get drug on whenever they go downhill or up the hill.
I think, just to clarify to everybody, and I understand, we understand, I'm speaking for these guys now at that point too, that there's a lot of questions. We have these questions as well, and we know this has come into our community, a few weeks ago or a week ago or whatever, and honestly, we're still struggling with trying to find the answers as well. These are all great questions, what happens with this? I've heard different sides of the story on property values. I've heard that property values with modular homes and lenders and things, they look at modular homes different than they look at a stick-built home. I've heard that they don't. I've heard appraisers look at them and say this, and I've heard appraisers don't. I know mortgage lenders sometimes have listed on there how the construction of the home is. Is it a modular home or is it a stick-built home? So we've got a lot of research, I think, from this board standpoint that we need to do. We do have modular home regulations already on our books. We didn't create them right now. They were already there, you know what I mean? So we already have some certain criteria that they need to be met. If those criteria aren't met, I'll be honest, I have a concern up there. If this is a modular home, and that's fine. If it's set on concrete blocks up there on commercial property, that's outside the regulations that we have. So we need to do something about it. Our regulations state it has to be on a minimum of a 3-foot crawl space and or a full basement for concrete walls. So it's going to be, we've got a lot of things we've got to try to, I got one behind you.
Mike, just kind of curious, could you let us know what your process was when you started your business up here in Terre du Lac? And then is there any annual requirements you have to do as a business owner in Terre du Lac?
Not for Terre du Lac. I have to get an annual county license, annual legal license from the county and the state, nothing inside Terre du Lac.
And I assume you got permitting when you constructed your building? Do we have any fees for conducting business without a permit or proper licensing? Do we have that in bylaws?
Yeah, we have them in our rules and regulations, not in our bylaws.
Okay.
There's a process.
I know a surrounding community, there's up to a $500 per day fine to conduct business without proper permitting and licensing.
I think ours is like first offense is $25 until you, on a violation, until, you get 10 days to correct it. If you don't, then it goes to 50 and, these kind of wrap on, and they're relatively low. These are all things that we may need to look at, obviously in our rules and regulations and updating a lot of stuff. We honestly, in my opinion, we sit on these boards and we do a lot of decision making and we do a lot of things and we tend to do things in a day-to-day basis and we don't really dive deep and go into research and say, look, there's something here we need to change until we find the problem.
Well, it's just good to see you. I appreciate you doing what you were supposed to do and you did your thing. That's good to see. So.
Mine is a quick question. When you, in regards to, we were talking about modular homes quite a bit, does it have to go on the deed that it has been a modular home when it's built, and does it remain on the deed, or is that a wash after so many years? Does anybody know the answer?
I don't know the answer to that personally, the deeding process.
I heard it did, but I'm not saying it's true.
Yes, sir.
Mike, I got a question. And I applaud you three for being here. I'd never be in those shoes. I just want to tell you, I appreciate the work you are doing. But we are hearing a lot. We got a lot more work to do. We may need to look at that. When can we expect some things to actually be done? Because it seems like right now we're just in a holding pattern. Am I
July
right?
27th, hopefully.
July 27th is a court.
July
decision.
26th is the court.
Hopefully the court decision 26th. But we also know how the court system works, so that can be drug out even longer and longer, which what is stopping this board that has a majority here tonight of making a decision when it comes to the rules and regulations or policies or fines or things like that? What's stopping that? Is there an injunction right now?
Right now, yes. Right now, we're operating under an emergency court order. Typically, we would, and our bylaws state that we have to have 5 members for a quorum for the board to operate and to be able to make decisions.
That's based on the 7-member panel, though, right?
Correct. That's based on a 7-member panel. We had two of those 7 resign. So we had 2 board openings. It left us with 5 board members. We started into this process. We found there was some problems, right? We couldn't pay bills. We had, a couple of the guys, one of the guys that, well, 2 of the guys that resigned were on our check signature cards still at the bank. The court made an emergency order that we could operate with 3 board members as a quorum. That left these 3 sitting here as a quorum, and signatories on our checks. We require 2 signatures on all our checks to pay the bills. And that court order also stated that we are to only operate and pay the bills and do the day-to-day basic minimum operation until the court makes its final decision.
You know, I've been coming to these meetings for years, and I don't know how many times I was in a meeting, and people were complaining about the trailer courts, and all we heard was, there's nothing we can do. They were eyesores, they were health hazards, there were so many things that were so bad, and everybody kept saying, we're not a city, we don't have rule, there's nothing we can do. These people are letting their places, we can't turn off the utilities, there's nothing we can do. So I almost think this is kind of a joke, that everyone is getting so upset about these modular homes. I just don't understand.
Well, I think
can I say something? I think one thing is, and we're all frustrated because of the unknown. And that's where we're at. We're at the unknown. We don't know what they're gonna do. We have beautiful pictures up here, what it's could look like. We don't know, and that's the problem.
Well,
So I'm hoping on the 26th, we have a better direction. Hopefully, we'll see how that goes. And
so then, do you think there's any chance that we can do other things to improve Terre du Lac?
I want to make
that's all our goals here, or we wouldn't be here. That's our goal.
a point I want to make with the mobile homes, and some of the reasons, I want to try to explain that. Some of the reasons why the mobile homes are such a different, Terre du Lac tends to take on its own monster sometimes, and we always have unique from any other place in the country, right? So part of our issues with mobile homes are treated no different than your car. They are personal property. So we can't go in and pull that personal property out away from you. We can't put liens on your personal property.
So why can't we change that?
Because that's a Missouri state statute. Or maybe even a federal law, I'm not sure, but I know it's a state law. So we're very limited sometimes on what we can do. That's why you always hear that frustration saying, oh, there's nothing that we can do. There are some things we can do, and we do find these people, and we do. Sometimes we're finding people that aren't paying their dues and assessments anyway. So we're fighting a losing, we're not fighting a losing battle, we're continuing, but we're spinning our wheels and not getting there. That's why you hear the frustration, there's nothing we can do down there. Well, we are doing things, but it is a unique area, and that's where this challenge comes from. There's a difference between a modular home and there's a difference between a manufactured home. Manufactured home has a title and a serial number, just like your car does, just like all the mobile homes that are in our mobile home park now. And they're sold that way. A modular home now
And is that considered property?
it is considered personal property at that point. So now a modular home, they take a big huge factory, they build your, no, not a lot different than they may do with a log home, right? In Montana, you may order a log home, they go out there, they cut it up, they build it in their big factory or their property, whatever, they number the logs, they take it all apart, they truck it to your site, and they put it all back together. That would be a form of a modular home. And then I don't have a clear answer whether this is a modular home or a manufactured home at this point. I know it can come in on a trailer, but I know modular homes have to come on a trailer. They don't helicopter them, they don't bring them, they don't just appear.
In Montana.
Well, maybe in Montana someplace. But, so there are a lot of questions that, again, we're
One thing Mr.
really-
Combs did say tonight, he said that one thing I did notice when I was listening to him, he said the walls were 2x6s. So that tells me that it's a pretty strong built home. Some of those modular homes are known for being 2x6s. I don't know if that's true about his homes, but he said they did. That's.
Let me get Joyce here real quick.
A little bit added to what Rita had said. Yes, I've been frustrated. I've only been here 5 years. And from the very first meeting, 3 months after we moved, I was shut down by the board when I asked a question about trailers or anything else. Well, there's nothing we can do because we're a private community. And I'm going, what? We're homeowners, we pay, we have the right to know. So there have been many boards, not just, recent, that have done that. In fact, when Judy was on the board, I got that response. When Mike was on before, you two guys, you're innocent, this is your first. So there's no question there, but I also want to add, developer. A developer, as you said, is responsible for building roads, laying the culverts, doing all of this. Guess what? You all might think that, God rest his soul, I mean, I'm not putting Mr. Kwan down, but as a developer, he did what he wanted to his advantage. Anytime he didn't make money, he sold it. Example, Country Club. It was losing money, membership took it over. Okay. Associate.
They bought it.
They bought it. Well, you took
There's
it
a
over.
difference between taking it over and buying it.
Okay, but you've got it. So anyway, association. Boy, he was a very smart man. Have the association, not him, be responsible for the roads. Who were we? We were the dummies. We allowed. What happened when Joyce Gwillim moved into Terre du Lac? I started asking questions. I don't care. I'm not here to make friends, but I want the answers. I don't dislike any of them. It's just tell me an answer to the question. And
Can I get her back here real quick, Tracy? Helen, yes.
One of the things that does concern me about these mobile homes, we've been, the developer has been in place for 50 years. Why now? Why in the middle of everything that's going on? To me, it would seem logical to put things on hold until we have everything straightened out. But all it seems to me that it has done is it's caused turmoil within the community of what is going on. And as Joyce said, she went and talked with Ms. Kwan, and what business is it of yours? It's our business because we live here. And I just would like to find out, why now is this going on? It's just my opinion. It just looks to me like it's creating more turmoil. And wouldn't it be better to just wait and find out what's going on or what's going to happen?
Well,
to make this, it's sort of like, what if the courts decide and say all of this stuff is null and void, that's going to cost them money.
I can't answer that.
I just wish.
Helen, Gary Combs' number's right here on his card. You can give him a call, because we can't answer those questions.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's basically, it's a, Mr. Hector,
That's close.
it's kind of a rhetorical question.
Yeah, I know.
Why is this going on now? It doesn't do anything to create, it just creates, I mean, it creates turmoil, and that's all it's doing.
Well, I want to try to back up a little bit and this is kind of, it's kind of become a developer Kerry Combs bashing thing here, and I don't think that that's particularly fair in a certain sense. He is a business person. He has a business, and he has the right to make money. At the backs of us, well, maybe not. I mean, there may be different varying opinions of that. But at this point, I can't answer those questions. That would be something for him.
No, it's a rhetorical question.
But,
I'm just
right.
saying, it doesn't help with the stress that's already in the community.
I may agree or disagree. It's just that I think it is what it is, and without, there's a lot of questions. We want answers to what is going on right now. That's our focus, right? Because that's what's happening right now in our community.
Okay.
And that's what we need to have. Mrs. Wibbenbach.
I would like to hear from Mr. Miller and your opinion on things that are happening. I mean, you've been quiet tonight.
Could you be more specific on
Well, I don't know,
things
any
that's pretty
of
general?
the questions they had tonight, I mean, what's your opinion?
Well, I think that, for one, we need to get control of bylaws. We need to get control of the bylaws. I believe that's imperative, and it doesn't matter to me whether he's defined as developer or not developer. Whatever the courts decide, I hope they give us control of these, or at least come to some kind of agreement where a mediator will help rewrite these. As far as the modular homes go,
You ask for our input?
sure. I mean, we're a board of the community for the community.
Because it sounds like it's just you and the courts, and we're not being consulted on anything.
Well, the court's gonna decide on whether or not he's a developer or not. I'm not gonna decide that. But either way, I hope that the court recognizes that these are outdated and they can be redone. And I don't care if it's mediated between the developer and us as a community. It just needs to be a little more balanced and updated, because it's a lot of antiquated stuff in there. Talking about bookkeeping on pen and paper, not taking into account computers or anything else. As far as the modular homes, I'm not as upset as a lot of people, because I drove around. First day they came in, I went and looked at it, and I had questions. And I drove around Terre du Lac looking for other modular homes, and there's some very nice ones out there. As far as tearing up the roads, yeah, they may tear up the roads when they bring them in. That's part of why we have a permit process. That down payment pays for damages to roads. I don't know how much they weigh, but if you're building a house, you have bobcats and backhoes, you have concrete trucks, you have plumbers,
That would have to be a hefty permit though, Mike, to cover the road repair.
Well,
How I understand it, and I'm just saying my understanding of this, is that these are homes to be bought from the people, and then they would have to get a permit to put it on their lots.
Yeah, regardless though, I mean, you're talking about maybe the permit will cover the cost of road damage, that's gonna be, typically you would put a bond or some amount on there for that
Do
potential.
you think they were more than and Dwayne can help me out this, what's,
Okay, you're like 20,000 pounds per axle, like we have this stuff for living. You can have 50 dump trucks in and out of there, 50 times, you can have a crane in and out of there, you can have concrete trucks in and out of there, or you can have one shot in, one shot out. You're like 22,000 pounds per axle in state of Missouri, that I can assure you. It doesn't have to be, if I'm done highway, without them roads. I've probably done 15 of these in the last 20 years, some very nice ones, some of them, I wouldn't be ashamed of doing.
In here? In here?
Yes, absolutely, and, there's, they're all over the place. It's how you maintain a house. I mean, there's a lot of nice homes out here that they maintain at all. And then, you make a modular home and keep it nice and tidy. Well, that's not gonna hurt on the property value, in my opinion.
I don't know the weight of it, that's the one thing I'm saying, I don't know how much they weigh, but that's what I was saying, I mean, I think a concrete truck would weigh more than one of these things being pulled in. Absolutely. So it's one extra truck.
you're talking a trailer with all the wood, or a trailer with shingles, or a trailer with.
Yeah, again, that's what I'm saying,
That's a lot more weight.
that's what I'm saying, I don't know, that's what I'm saying, I don't know.
Adam, have we had any complaints because of these type of homes? Has TDL had complaints of any issues with the modular home?
I don't know if any.
I've watched them put them in, and a year or two later, I can't find them if they're mixed in with another bunch of houses, but I can't even tell they're, so what's the big row?
Well,
I mean,
there's a lot of concerns going on, and we're listening to you, we hear what you're asking, and we understand the questions.
I think part of it, Mr. Haggerty, is just the, like Adam said earlier, the unknowns of, is this actually a modular home or a manufactured home? We don't know that yet.
we insure them as a stick-built house.
Okay.
If they're a true modular,
Yeah.
fastened to a foundation.
Right.
I think the questions are, is Mr. Combs gonna bring these in and sell them himself, and those type of questions, and those are questions we all have.
Well, when you see the prices on them, you won't want to buy one.
Well, this one right here, the entrance starts at $149.
On your basement. You're looking at $200,000 for one.
I have no idea. When Mr. Combs said when they're done, they're about $200,000.
You can build a stick-built house for what you buy.
Yeah, it's 6
weeks.
It's 6 to 8 weeks to
6 to 9 months.
True.
Mr. Whipper.
I don't have a concern with modulars per se, but I have heard from several builders already that, everybody wants these beautiful stick-built homes. Takes six to 8 months to build sometimes. Like, why bother? They're done with it. They're just gonna clear a lot or start putting modulars in. So they can be in and out a couple months. Now, you just built a nice beautiful home over there, Mike. How would you feel if they clear a bunch of lots and start sticking them over there? Do you feel that would affect your property value?
I personally, if they're 2x6 frame, I don't. I mean,
That's common building materials, is 2x6.
I'm not overly concerned. Do I have questions? Do I think that we have to ensure that, in some way, that the highest quality products are brought in? Yes. Do I think that maybe we should cap the amount as a percentage of Terre du Lac to come in here? Sure, that's something we should look at.
My advice would be, assume it happens if they clear lots across and we start putting them in. Or to make sure what the appraisers are gonna say 20 years down the road when you want to sell your home. You're like, oh, it's drugged down by, $140,000, 2,000 square foot modular versus yours, how it affects it. You might be in for a surprise.
The biggest difference with that is maintenance and upkeep of the home. It doesn't matter what you're talking about either way.
Otherwise, if you don't have pride of ownership of the dwelling, it doesn't matter if it's a modular or stick-built. People are gonna trash the yard up, they're gonna trash it up. Drive around,
But you can clean a yard up and look at it.
$25 fine.
If a modular is dragging your property down, I'm not saying it will, if it does, there's nothing you can do with it. You've got your
What do you do with the stick,
$240,000.
what do you do with the stick-built house that's next door to you, and it's not being taken care of? It's
It's
gonna drag your
fixed up.
property down.
It can be fixed up and sold and bring the value up.
Anything else, guys? Anything else?
You got one right.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Do you have any idea where this proposed retirement village is gonna go in at?
I'm sorry, did you say something, sir?
He's right now. He's talking to you.
Do you know, did you say? You
Say again?
You knew where they were gonna
No,
put
he
these?
said
No.
my back.
Oh, okay.
I said her backyard.
Well, when she handed me this, she mentioned the Valley course, the Valley golf course.
Is that the 32-acre tract she owns over there by the golf course?
I don't know what she owns.
On the assessor's office, there's a 32-acre tract that Juan's own that's by the golf course over there.
Yeah, and that's possible. So, but it says Deer Valley, and that's the Valley golf course.
That's down toward Big River.
Mhm. So there's river access. And again, guys, I recommend you guys stopping in and saying, Mr. Combs, what's going on up there?
Well, the
Because-
unfortunate thing is, he's not gonna answer. He won't show up here to
Well,
answer a question.
Just like,
He's not gonna answer them up there in his office, Adam. That's
absolutely, yeah, so, I'm sorry, I forgot your first name, Joyce. So as Joyce said, when your friends come to buy a house, that's one of the reasons I was snickering, because Who's gonna buy a house? They're gonna ask you guys, hey, where would you get out? And so if you're being treated that way, it's just like any other business. And I'm not saying good or bad, but I'm in a business, we all have businesses, and if you treat the people well, they're gonna say, hey, Mike has a great business up there. You guys should go give him some business. He does a great job.
No, he doesn't.
Well, whatever. but if they say, hey, Adam's a jerk, and I'm not gonna give him, and people are gonna hear that, and they're not gonna come to me. And that's.
The unfortunate thing is, Combs has not made himself visible. And he needs to do that. You can't make him do
Absolutely.
about it. Nobody.
Gentleman up here.
Yes, sir.
This might have been asked or answered already, but my biggest thing is just permit, is my biggest issue with all of it. If, from what I understand, if the developer's building a home on a lot, let's say, does he pay any permitting fees whatsoever?
No.
But if I have to build a shed, if I wanna build a shed on my property, I need to get permits and drawings and have it approved, but he doesn't.
Correct.
And if they go down this Deer Valley retirement place, and that becomes a Combs or the developer property or whatever, they can build all those places down there with no permit. You know, so that's the thing that bothers me. Yeah. I mean, because I would have to do that, and you wouldn't have to do it. All of us in here have to have permits that.
Well, I can tell you 3 board members heard that you're unhappy with how the permits go. That was a vote made, Mike just told me last year sometime. April last year.
Yeah.
So, things can be reversed, things can be, you just need to let your board members know.
I think the biggest issue is that for the developer, he doesn't have to have a permit, but other people out here to build do have to have permits.
That's what he just said.
No, I mean, not just him, I'm talking about somebody else who wants to build a home on a piece of property. They have to have a permit. That's not democratic.
Combs doesn't?
No.
If it doesn't belong on this lot, Combs don't own the lot, does it, does it, Tom?
That's another question that we don't, we think, in the assessor's office right now, it's showing as under the Quan Trust. If they have executed some sort of sale, it has not been transferred, no, I have not gone to the courthouse to check it, to say, hey, yes, or this or that. It hasn't shown up on the website that the ownership has changed hands.
And that's, we've been told that it has changed hands, so that's what we're working on right now.
Recorder of deeds can answer that pretty simply.
Right.
Well, I guess one of my, I hope if you do change the bylaws, that we have a vote in it. I mean, we had an election months ago, people were elected, they were elected, then there was a recall. The recall was put down, guess what? Nobody listened to the majority of the people, and that's what really frustrates me.
Well, I will say, of the 2 that were on, at least 2 of those that were on the recall resigned from the board, so they weren't removed by anybody else other than themselves.
He resigned because he died.
No, he did not. He resigned prior to him dying.
But Mr. Tilley, he did resign because of himself.
He did. I'm not questioning it, and presumably so did Dan for other reasons. But I'm just saying, the court system or me or anything that I did not remove those 2. They removed themselves. They had their reasons. I'm not putting that down. But they didn't. It wasn't. Right.
We're the property owners, that is what we need to be doing. Let me finish.
Yeah. I'm just gonna clarify something.
Yeah.
Yes, I will let you finish.
So, and then, there's a recall, we voted again.
And we voted against the recall.
Right.
And guess what? They just, then you start filing lawsuits. It's like, nobody's listening to us.
So
Well-
that's the problem.
So I'm not saying that the bylaws don't have to be changed or shouldn't be changed. But if people vote on something, you should respect that.
I have.
And not just run to an attorney and say, we're gonna sue.
There's various reasons, and I've already tried to explain those, in that there were board members that were rebuking their responsibilities on this board, and I had a legal right, this board had a legal right to remove them. when they didn't remove themselves. They were doing damage to this association. Yes, ma'am. I'm not trying to argue about it. I will say that I have been approached by a couple of members of this community that asked and said, when it comes time, or can we get a committee together that wants to look at and help look at revisions on the bylaws and or beef them up and do things. So I brought this out because we're not to that point yet of being able to do that. But there will be, if I'm around when this happens, I will push and try to help push for a committee, and anyone's welcome to get on that committee to try to help rewrite our bylaws.
Anybody that wants to be on it?
Anybody that wants to be on it.
You might do it.
And it may, well,
we can't have 300 people trying to figure that out.
2,000 people on trying to rewrite the bylaws. I mean, let's be realistic. We gotta have to pare it down a little bit. But anybody has that right to be on that committee.
There's gonna be,
I guess.
Will there also be some updates in policies and procedures as to the day-to-day operations of Terre du Lac as well?
I can only voice and say that I think we all would like to see that. Yes, sir.
We had about 8 people run for the board, is that right, on this last election?
Maybe 6 or 8, something like that. We typically have to have 2 people per seat.
Well, my question is, we had several people that ran, and those people who got a lot of votes that ran could maybe fill these positions that need to be filled in. Have we thought about?
We thought about it, but right now the judge won't let us do this.
Oh, I see.
Under the court order, he's not, he has said that we are not to fill the board until after the decision is made at the court date. Yes, sir.
Okay, this is on our last statement. With all due respect to the lady back there, remember when I got up and said this all started right after the elections took place?
Yes.
And things went behind closed doors when they fired a group that I think was all planned out in the future. I'm just telling you what I feel. Again, it's another opinion. Before they even got elected, they were maneuvering and hoping it would all fall into place where they could start pulling these shenanigans. And I think they were doing things, some of these that are not
Well,
present
it
today.
was my understanding that it was a cost saving.
Well, I know what your understanding was, but that doesn't make it true. I'm not saying, it was all done behind closed doors without any discussion with the community.
I voted for him because he said he
Did I have the floor?
Okay.
Thank you. I said, without conferring with the community. That's why I talked about truth, honesty, and transparency. The board, in my opinion, is allowed to do anything as long as they make sure that we all understand that they have our support. But if they're going to take over as dictators, get rid of the police force, or fire other people who have been here for no organized reason. And if someone got fired for a reason that they,
She did
that
not
should
get
be.
fired. He eliminated the position, right?
No,
That's a big difference.
the what?
It's a big difference if you eliminate the position. He
They
ran
eliminated
saying
it.
he
Come
is
on.
going to save
They
the
eliminated
community
it so they
money.
can get their taxes paid for how many months? Excuse me, man, you better. Again, I'm going to need to leave because we're rehashing things. And I want to appreciate all of you.
Hey, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Again, I want to reiterate my acronym, truth, honesty, and transparency. And if we don't demand that, we just might as well hold it up and don't bother having meetings.
Anything else?
Peace to all of you. Good night.
Okay. This unofficial meeting is unofficially adjourned. Anybody want to see these? They're up here.